Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from yourblackworld.com, and I saw a story yesterday that really bothered me, really got my attention, and really infuriated me. And it's the story of Brian Banks. Brian Banks is a young brother who had a promising football career. He was headed to play at the college level, and some thought he had prospects for an NFL career. He was being heavily recruited by schools as good as USC. And when you're getting recruited by USC, you are usually pretty good. Brian Banks had an interaction with a young woman who decided for whatever reason that she was going to accuse him of raping and kidnapping her. And so, Mr. Banks, after being accused by this young lady, then her name is Juanetta Gibson. So Miss Gibson accuses him of kidnapping and rape, which are very serious charges. Brian then goes, obviously he gets arrested, and his attorney works with the prosecutor, and they tell him, we know that you think that you're innocent, or you're saying that you're innocent, but if you fight these charges, you can face up to 41 years in prison. So they advised him to go ahead and plead no contest, which would mean that he would get, or he was expecting to get 18 months in prison. Instead, he spent at least the next 6 years of his life in prison. And this incident took place when he was 16. Now he's 26. And finally, the young lady confessed to him, or he already knew that he didn't do it, but she finally admitted that she didn't do it, and he was able to record it, and she actually literally friended him on Facebook and all these other ridiculous things. And so now he has been exonerated, but at what cost? So to really talk about this issue, I wanted to bring in my editor-in-chief at Your Black World, Yvette Carnell. How you doing today, Yvette?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing very well, very well. Now, this story about Brian Banks, I don't know about you, but it upset me. It hurt me. I mean, you could see him crying in the courtroom, and you could really feel his pain. It angered me. How did you feel when you heard about what happened to him?
Well, I thought it was just awful. And here's the thing, and I think you see this a lot. You see people who try to use the court as their personal little playpen for whatever revenge that they want to get. And you see this, even when we look at smaller cases, even when you look at something as small as, say, child support or something like that, you see personal things come into these things. You see it's not about whatever the case is at hand. Someone is using the courtroom. Some people are using the courtroom as their personal little playpen to get when they're vindictive, to get revenge on this person or that person. And that's not what courtrooms are about. This courtroom was about trying this boy for a criminal case. It's trying people who are really a threat to us. It's not your personal playpen to just go and do with it what you will and just make up a story because your boyfriend or ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend pissed you off. It's a waste of taxpayer dollars. It's a waste of someone's life. You've taken away years that they can't get back. And I don't know anyone who won't tell you that the 20s are your best, your best years. You're the most energetic and everything. And he was going away to school. No one knows what would have happened in his life had he been allowed to, if the trajectory had been unimpeded by her telling this lie.
Right. I felt that it shouldn't be over. The young lady said that part of the reason that she told him this, she said, I want to help you clear your record, but I'm afraid that if I do this, that they're going to come back and make me give back the $1.5 million that she and her mother got when they sued the school for what allegedly happened to her. From what I read, there was no physical evidence to say that he had raped this woman. And what that translates to me is that you had a group of people who worked together to ruin this man's life. It starts with the woman who falsely accused him, and she should go to prison for what she did. She shouldn't just have to pay the money back. She should get 10 to 15 years in prison for what she did to this man. Every second that he would have had to spend in prison for possibly raping her, she should go to prison for raping him of his future. That's his, not to misuse the word rape, but this brother, when he's in court crying, you can really tell that he's crying because he has experienced unmentionable horrors in prison, that he's really gone through an absolute nightmare. And everybody who made this happen should be made to pay. The young lady should pay by going to prison. Then there should be an investigation. You need to look at the attorney who advised him to take this plea deal, the prosecutor who didn't have the evidence but somehow felt that they should convince this young teenager to exchange his right to a fair trial for this plea bargain, which turned out to be something other than what he thought it was going to be. And, if you ask me, this justice system is supposed to be built on the idea that everybody has a right to a fair trial, and it should not be predicated upon you sort of risking this unbelievable prison sentence if you demand your right to a fair trial. Because basically what they're telling him is, look, you can fight this if you want to. You can ask for the justice that we've promised you if you want to, but if you go for this justice and you ask for this justice and you are denied the justice, if you're found guilty, you can get up to 41 years in prison. Well, that's a threat. You're threatening him into giving up his right to a fair jury trial. That's what bothers me. I think a lot of people should go to jail, lose their licenses, be sued for malpractice. I think that the state owes him at least no less than $10 million for what they did to him. This man deserves compensation from a whole lot of people, starting at the very top.
Well, no, I agree with that. And I think a lot of people are focused on this young woman telling this lie. And I think a lot of the focus should go on that. But like you say, there's a whole apparatus here that failed this man. It's not just anybody can go right now and tell a lie on me, you, or anybody else. But there's an apparatus, there's a justice system that's supposed to protect us from that. We're supposed to have prosecutors who take a thorough and sober look at the law. You're supposed to have a judge or a jury who really, assess and weigh things and weigh your propensity for this sort of violence. This guy didn't have a history of violence. So what if you don't have evidence that he raped this young woman? What are you doing? Are you just taking one word versus another word? Is that enough to put someone away because someone tells a good story? To me, a good story, you getting up in front of me and telling me this happened, even if you are a believable woman, it's not enough to lock someone up. That's not evidence. Your word, his word, that's not evidence. And even though I might be wrong, I'd rather take the chance on being wrong and saying, well, maybe this is true, but I don't have evidence of that, so I have to let you go. So I'd rather, you just want to side on the side of innocence. I'd rather, you have to ask yourself, would I rather a guilty man go free or would I rather lock up an innocent person? And I think you have to fall on that side. But prosecutors don't fall on that side. Prosecutors just want to win the case. The human being who's at the center of this thing never weighs into it. And you've seen overzealous prosecutors do that everywhere. That's what they do. I just want to win. I want to win at all costs. And whoever gets hurt in the process, so be it. And even if you find me out half the time, you have cases where they find out with DNA and everything that this prosecutor was wrong, that this shouldn't have happened. And the prosecutor still doesn't want to overturn the case. They still fight it. So I think we have a problem with prosecutors. Now, in terms of whether this young lady should go to jail for this, I have an issue with that. And here's why. I have an issue with unintended consequences. And that's what I worry about. I worry about, let's say a young woman did something wrong and she was 16 and she accused somebody of rape, and it's 4 years later she wants to come forward and say, he didn't do this. I worry that if she's going to face jail time, she won't come forward. She'll just let him, I'm not going to go to jail for 10 years. So I can't say anything. So I worry if she faces jail time, whether or not she'll ever come forward and tell the truth. No, I'm not saying that should mean that, she shouldn't have some sort of punishment, but I worry about if the punishment is too harsh, is she just going to put her interest over the guy's interest and say, you know what, if I'm going to face jail time, then it is what it is. It's not my fault. It's the prosecutor's fault, and they can do with it what they want to do with it.
Well, let's be clear. Number one, the girl did not voluntarily admit that he didn't do it. She friended him on Facebook and they had a private conversation from what I understand, and he called her, he recorded her. And, and my concern I think what you're saying is certainly valid, that the punishment certainly would deter those who might come forward. But that could be argued for any crime. If I rob a bank and I'm thinking about possibly turning myself in, I'm not going to turn myself in if I think that I might go to prison, or if I commit a murder or commit a rape or anything, and so I think that, you're right. I think that the idea to me is that an individual who does tell that kind of a lie on somebody, they might eventually have a crisis of conscience and come forward. But unfortunately, these are already individuals who've proven themselves to be unethical from the very beginning. The fact that you did accuse that person and let them go to prison and all this other stuff says that you're probably not going to ever come back and right the wrong, just because you're more concerned about yourself than you are about other people. But I don't know. I will still say at the end of the day that I think this woman needs to go to prison, especially since she did not voluntarily confess. Now, maybe there could be provisions that say if you voluntarily confess, then we'll lighten your sentence. You won't get as harsh of a penalty as you will if we catch you. But at the end of the day, if we catch you and you've been holding this lie in and somebody just busted you, then you need to go to prison for as long as the person that you were trying to send away. And the other thing that bothers me about this case, Yvette, and this is the last thing I'm going to say on this because I can't even hardly talk about it without getting angry because I've seen this happen in my own family, is that this happens all around the country. Brian, see, here's the thing about Brian Banks. This is what makes it bittersweet, is that on one hand, you see this brother who's finally been exonerated. And so you're so happy for him. He can be with his mother. His mother has been in a living hell for over a decade. He's been in a living hell. It's been made right to a point. But the things that make this sweetness so bitter are, number one, the question is he ever going to truly be compensated for what he lost? And I said the answer is no. Number two, for every Brian Banks that we find out about, there are probably a few hundred more or maybe thousands more that we never hear about. We never hear their story. We never hear the story about all these millions of innocent people, and many of them are African American. We know that the prison system is the new Jim Crow because they are pulling us into these modern day concentration camps. That there are millions of these stories that we'll never hear about somebody who got caught up on a charge, got brought in on mistaken identity, couldn't afford a good attorney, and was given this deal with the devil that says, if you command your right to justice and a fair trial, you risk possibly being sent to prison for longer than you can ever possibly imagine. So you better go ahead and just take the deal. So these young brothers, without legal advice, without good legal advice, they take the deal. They go to prison for maybe a few months or a few years or whatever. They come out. They are psychologically damaged for life. Because we know that horrible things happen in prison. We make jokes about prison rape, but that shit ain't funny. Excuse my French. Prison rape is not funny. That's how HIV gets spread. That's how people get traumatized over that. That's not a joke. You have the fact that going to prison makes you a worse criminal in many cases. You are marginalized for life. This brother was going to have to register as a sex offender for the rest of his life because of what happened. So how easy is it to get a job when you are a registered sex offender? How easy is it to get a job when you have this criminal record? So this is happening on a massive scale. That's what I think leads to this issue permeating with so many people, because this story literally crashed our website today. I don't know how our tech people are going to get it back up, but it crashed our website because I think there are so many millions of people who look at this story and say, that happened to my cousin, that happened to my brother, that happened to my father. And I'm one of those people. My father went to prison. My older brother went to prison. I know a lot of people in my family who went to prison. So this story really hits home. And I think that this is a call and a cry for something better in our justice system. We got to demand this no matter what the consequence may be.
Well, I think you're right. I think in this sense, and let me just go back to this. I do agree. I'm sure there are laws on the book which and I'm, absolutely positive that there are, where lying and perjury, those things are against the law. And she should definitely be prosecuted for those things. But I wouldn't say it's the same as if you come forward and let's say you somebody else got convicted for robbing a bank and you actually robbed a bank. Well, robbing a bank still gets you 30 years in jail. That's still the sentence for robbing a bank. That's not the sentence for lying to a jury or lying to a prosecutor or whatever. And I'm not sure I would want to extend that sentence because I don't want to do anything that prevents someone from coming forward if that's their inclination. Now, I know she didn't come forward, but I think in the conversation that was taped, she was trying to kind of meander around and figure out a way and navigate because her conscience was bothering her. And she would say, I don't want to give back the money or whatever. And he was smart enough to have taped her. But in other situations, if somebody decides they want to come forward, I want them to be able to do that, and I want to leave that open. But she should definitely be prosecuted to the full extent of the law for perjury and everything else that she did, lying to a police officer. All of those things are criminal offenses. But in terms of what happened to him, to me, like I said, first of all, the justice system is not a tool. And people, we really have to start doing something. And I'm not sure what that thing is. I'm not sure if it's what you said, if it's criminalization. I'm not sure what it is. But we have to start doing something to hold people accountable who use the justice system as their revenge. That's not the intended. It's intended to take dangerous people off the street. That's what it's intended to do. It's not intended for, it's not a tool for when you get mad. You can go and say, I'm gonna go tell the jury this, or I'm gonna go tell the judges, I'm gonna call the police and tell the police. And it happens on a smaller level too. You'll see it happen with women who will call the police and say, my husband, he just smacked me. You know what I mean? And he goes to jail for that night or that week, and that didn't happen. He could lose his job. He can lose his way of earning an income because the woman got mad and wanted to use this. Now, it also takes away from women who were domestically abused, who were been beat up. People are not taking them seriously because people come in and lie about it. People come in and lie about rapes. So that's a whole nother problem. We have a whole nother problem. But again, you have to go to the justice system. You have to go to these laws. You have to go to these prosecutors, these overzealous prosecutors who want to prosecute no matter what, even if the evidence isn't there, even if it's not strong enough. You have to remember that it's the prosecutor's decision to prosecute a case or not. They could look at this. If I had looked at this, I would have said, I don't see anything here. I don't see anything here that really indicates that that I could get a conviction in a jury. So I'm going to let it go. It's not a matter of how I feel about this person. It's not a matter of how I feel about rape. It's about evidence. And I don't think you have people in the justice system who care about right and wrong anymore. I don't think you have people who care about whether a young black boy spends 5-10 years in jail or whatever. That's just what they do, isn't it? You have these sorts of stereotypes. Well, and you have this system that is almost as if it wants to get them caught up in the system. It's almost as if it's designed for them to get caught up in the system. And you can't once you get caught up in it, how do you get out of it? You have to say, how do you get out of the system? Because it's not like, think about it. When you have bad credit, these things stay on your credit for 7 or 10 years. That felony conviction never goes away. Never goes away, no matter what job you find, no matter what people who hire you, it's always there. It could be 10, 15 years later, even if you did the thing, even if you were convicted of the felony because you actually committed a crime, you could be a totally different person 10 or 15 years later, and it's still there, which means that you don't have the choices that someone who was not convicted of a felony has. You don't have any choices. You're just throwing yourself on the kindness of strangers, of the kindness of someone who is like, okay, maybe I'll hide the felon. And chances are you could have a lower wage because they know you can't go anywhere. You're a felon. So there are all of these repercussions that just fall down on you because of what happens in the American justice system. And it's happening, sadly, mostly to young black males. And it's just very sad because you see them being trotted off, even for nonviolent offenses. I'm not going to get into this right now, but even marijuana and all sorts of other things, you just see them being criminalized. And once you get criminalized, you can't escape from it. Meanwhile, remember the case way back when the little Duke boys were charged of raping the girl or whatever, and they got their high-priced attorneys and they got out of it. If that was a black boy, he'd still be in jail. Because he wouldn't have had the attorney to refute what happened in the events and scour the place for DNA and private eyes and detectives. So it's just really sad at the level of which you see kind of these young black men kind of trotted off to prison, for crimes they either didn't do or shouldn't be criminalized.
I agree with you 100%. I think that, we have to really examine how we go about administering justice, or how we administer injustice in our country. You're right. The court of law, unfortunately, has not become a place to seek for truth. It's become a place where people are there to win. Prosecutors are trying to maintain their conviction rate. Defense attorneys are trying to send innocent people or guilty people back to the streets. And in many cases, judges aren't even doing their jobs. I think that this case is a wake-up call. But remember, we can't just think about Brian Banks. We got to think about all of the individuals who are suffering in that quiet hell. Right now, there are thousands of people in prison who don't belong there. There are thousands of people who were railroaded by the system. We have to support efforts to at least create a process where those individuals can get the justice that they're supposed to get in this country. It's got to be done immediately, because remember, they're not the only ones suffering. They're leaving behind children. They're leaving behind parents. They're leaving behind siblings. They're leaving behind people in their communities and their families who need them and love them and who miss them. So this case is not something that we should just talk about and see in the media. This is something where we need to take this personally, because this is a bunch of crap. So thank you very much, Yvette. I truly appreciate your time.
No problem.
And thank you all for checking us out at yourblackworld.com. Until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.